What's up, everybody? It's the Aftermath on the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. I'm Anthony. He is John Sheeran, and we get to talk a little bit more to you about a win. Not the prettiest, not the most exciting in some ways, but very exciting in others. But the Bengals right the ship. They get to 3-3 in the bye. I think we all wiped a little bit of sweat off the brow after that one. Sigh of relief. All of that, but we are here to talk about it, what we saw, a little bit further breakdown, a little bit more in-depth analysis than what we bring you on the post-game report, where we kind of just dive through the numbers and some different things we saw, but a little bit more because we got the smart guy, not the dummy talking to you. We got the smart guy, John Sheeran, join us. John, what's going on, bud?
I don't even think anyone of any intelligence level can explain kind of just how that game kind of went. And I don't know, man. Like, I felt like at the end, I just had no idea how it was going to go down. But I mean, 2 wins in a row, 3 wins in the past 4 games, and it still feels like there's just, it's like that. This past month has mostly been wins, but there's still a lot left to be desired with this team. And I think that's just the overall vibe that everyone's feeling right now.
It is the overall vibe, and it is bringing questions about how good are they, how good can they be, what's the issue. And today, as the team and its members, its coaches, et cetera, met with the media, there was apparently a lot of frustration from Brian Callahan about execution on offense or lack thereof, missing a play here and there. There are some great things out there that former Bengals running back coach and now host of his own show, Kyle Caskey, is putting out on Twitter as well. So go check out that stuff that he's putting out there. I think he does a film breakdown show as well during the week too. So you're going to want to check that out. But I mean, it just seems to be, an inch here or there. I guess let's start a little bit with the bad news, and that was the offense, because they started those first 2 drives. They started hot. And everything was clicking. Run game wasn't so great, but I mean, as far as the passing offense was going, everything was clicking. I think Burrow started 14 of 16 at one point. I mean, he was on fire. And then all of a sudden, I don't know. I wish I kind of had the sequence of events. I think Orlando Brown left the game with the groin injury, and then that kind of started to precipitate a little bit more of the struggles there. Burrow in the second half, that pinpoint accuracy he had in that first half, John, I saw about 3 or 4 throws that were, a couple steps behind every guy, and it stalled out drives, quite honestly, and it stalled out the offense in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, we saw pretty much what the offense looks like when Burrow is not, firing all cylinders, and the run game just continues to kind of look like how it's been looking the entire year, right? You're just running, shotgun gap schemes down the middle for maybe at best 5 or 6 yards, but those are even, far and few between. So you're not getting much out of your run game as a whole because of how limited it is. And when your quarterback is not very accurate, the timing's a little bit off. And just in general, guys other than the one, wearing the 7-Eleven necklace are just not getting open or just not making plays on the ball, right? Even like Tyler Boyd, I think he had a solid game, but even at this point, like, his average depth of target is maybe 6 yards. Like, he averaged, I think 6 or 7 yards a catch this game. They're not really using him beyond the sticks. Defenses aren't really, they don't really have to respect Trent Irwin at this point, and they certainly don't have to respect T. Higgins right now, because it continues to be rough for him, regardless of, the rib injury that he's dealing with. So it's really just this offense is just Jamar Chase doing a lot, and basically every time he touches the ball, it's a bigger play than even you would expect, regardless of the expectations that Jamar Chase has set for himself. But other than that, it's just a lot of lackluster, underwhelming athletes, unfortunately, with just the state of the offense and what maybe with what some guys are dealing with right now. And when the protection isn't perfect or the blocking isn't perfect and Burrow is not, like you said, pinpoint accurate, the offense definitely hits some stalls. And that's kind of what we saw in the second half.
I'm going to just quick roll. Iron Man asks, is this live? Well, this is how you know it's live, because we're pinning that comment. We're talking about it. Yes, we are live. So hopefully you're checking out. Hopefully the stream works. And by the way, just for anybody, in case you do tune in live, whether it's on Facebook or on our YouTube channel, if for some reason that, it gets frozen or something like that, make sure you refresh your browser or that sort of thing. So, in case there's an issue there. Always want to put out that disclaimer. Also, I mean, even if you're not joining us live, sometimes doing that will help if you have some sort of freeze anyway. But you're right, though. The offense kind of feels like, even though there's a lot of early in that game, there was a lot of efficiency. There was a lot of, high percentage passing and methodical drives. I think one of them was a 13-play drive. And it is a little bit like, based on what you're talking about, the target depth for Tyler Boyd, et cetera. It's a little bit like death from a 1,000 paper cuts, right? I mean, it's just, and then you throw into the fact, I think, if I remember correctly from the box score yesterday, the longest run by the Bengals offense yesterday was 5 yards. That's not getting it done. So I think, to your point, I'm seeing Brandon here. I wonder what it would take to acquire Gesicki. We talked about some trade stuff on Friday with the listener questions and all that kind of stuff. I mean, tight end is a question, obviously. And then a lot of people now are starting to bring up, we may need a little bit of extra sizzle at running back, kind of to complement Mixon a little bit, get some extra speed somewhere. I don't know where they would look to do that, but that is an area now where you go, man, we got to get some extra firepower here and there to keep things honest from the opposing defenses, because I do think, and granted it worked out, and we'll talk about the defense in just a little bit. I do think that this defenses are willing to allow the Bengals to do those 4-yard completions, 5-yard runs, kind of like what we were talking about earlier in the year with the run game. They're going to let Joe Mixon get close to 5 yards per carry because the passing offense wasn't working. Well, now these offenses are saying, you're not going to beat us deep. You're not going to beat us deep. There was a little bit of that last week against Arizona that the Bengals were able to break through that barrier. Not so much this week, though. And so, I mean, it was a complete night and day in terms of offensive performance in the first half, namely really the first 1.5 quarters, as opposed to the second half.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, it's just so much easier to move the ball when you can generate explosive plays, because you just have fewer chances to mess up or be inaccurate and find yourself in 3rd and longs or whatever the case may be. So you look at those first 2 drives, Burrow wasn't really pushing the ball down the field as much, but there was still explosive plays to be found from Jamar Chase. And that it shortens drives. It just makes it a lot easier on you. And then, of course, the first drive of the second half, Burrow is trying to push the ball down to Chase, and he fires it short, and it's interception. It's a great play on the ball by the Seahawks cornerback. But
and he had him covered well.
Yeah, but like that coverage and just the depth of where that throw ended up, it needed to be a back shoulder. If he was trying to lead Chase, he needed to actually, lead him and not just throw right into the cornerback's chest there. Right. But I do think with the Orlando Brown injury, because it wasn't tremendously well known. I want to say it wasn't tremendously reported on when he suffered the groin injury initially in week 4 against the Titans. He was on the injury report, but obviously he played last week against the Cardinals. And all of a sudden it was Cody Ford out there. And no one seemed to be saying anything until I think a drive later when people were like, oh yeah, Orlando Brown's on the sideline just chilling next to Frank Pollock. So we didn't know if he was injured. We didn't know if he was benched all of a sudden because he didn't play bad at all, but it did seem like part of the play calling was impacted a little bit because they had to deal with Cody Ford being at left tackle. The Bengals are still using this 20 personnel look sometimes with either Drew Sample in the backfield, or they had Sample and Travion Williams essentially pass protecting on the edge. And those plays, unfortunately, just like they stink because you just have 3 routes down the field in like a 3rd and 10. It just makes the coverage just a lot easier. Yeah, you're max protecting, and in theory, you shouldn't suffer like a pressure from the defensive line, but if your guys can't get open down the field, then the pressure is going to come to you anyways. So maybe the play calling was impacted a little bit by that, but still, like you have an offense that is not really pushing the ball down the field and it's just making it hard on everyone.
So you look at the offense, and I mean, now inevitably, as you see here, Kevin Kutch in our Facebook live Facebook feed says, "Do you all feel it's more of an execution issue or a creativity?" I assume creativity points. I don't want to speak for him, but is pointing to the old play call, and here's the tippity top talking about play calling. So again, when you hear and read the comments from Brian Callahan, you start to, I mean, you feel like it is an execution issue a little bit more so than a play calling issue. I don't know if you agree with that based on what you've seen, or if it's, I mean, we've kind of made a lot of excuses so far this year for the inconsistencies, right? It's Burrow's calf, it's the play calling. I know you're not getting the ball to Jamar, and then you're getting the ball to Jamar, and still the offense kind of sputters there. So we're kind of running out of time, running out of excuses for the lack of consistency here.
Yes, I think. I mean, obviously, Burrow's calf was a legitimate hindrance on the offense in general. I First of all, I love when Callahan speaks because he doesn't have, well, he's not in front of a camera and he doesn't have like the title of head coach and like the prestige to be all as diplomatic or anything. Like we get some real answers from him, and sometimes that kind of just preserves itself because he doesn't have to put himself out there. So I do appreciate when Callahan gets a little animated, or at least has some like real answers. And he said something today. I think it was Charlie Goldsmith who asked him this about implementing more plays from under center. And this is something that we've talked about a lot about in the offseason, and just the lack of it during the beginning of the season. It's just made the run game really stagnant. It's eliminated a lot of chances to create explosive plays in both the running and passing game. I think if we start to see more runs from under center, just more diversification with how they can kind of roll these plays out, I think then we'll see more chances to create something down the field. But in terms of execution versus play calling, like again, like the way that they're using Jamar Chase, I think is great. And Jamar Chase happens to be by far the best athlete that they have on offense. So naturally, when he gets the ball in his hands and the plays work, yeah, it looks fantastic. They're not really getting that same level of execution or athleticism from any of the other complementary options right now. And like defenses kind of take note of that. And the way that they play those receivers is a lot different than they play Jamar Chase. So part of it's personnel, I think, to me. And part of it is also just not adjusting your calls based off of your personnel. So it kind of goes hand in hand. It's obviously a lot of gray area and a lot of nuance with this.
Yeah, and I know shotgun, that's what Joe likes. And I know that's what they're primarily running. But it is hard to sell a play action properly. If you're always out of shotgun, it's hard to kind of then later on open some things up if you're always out of shotgun in the run game. It would be nice, like you said, if they do maybe some things under center a little bit more, and or from there you can do a play action boot, and maybe that's where you get guys like Irv Smith involved for some nice yardage, nice passes that way. But I do think going back to Burrow's calf, maybe they have had to they haven't been able to utilize plays like that because maybe his mobility has been, that affected. So maybe now with the bye week coming up here, you have time now to adjust, regroup, study, maybe implement some new things, as well as, Burrow getting healthier, and you can combine that and maybe, like you said, add another dimension to the offense because it needs it. I mean, it needs to do something needs to change for it to be consistent down the road.
Yeah, I think you need a fully healthy T. Higgins, who probably just needs a little bit of a break right now. Just heal the rib, kind of get a mental reset in there, because clearly like it's a lot of things maybe are bothering him with just everything that's kind of going on. You need him playing well, because if not, Jamar Chase is great. It's just hard to put together a consistent passing offense when he's your only real threat. But let's focus on the positives here, Anthony, because Zach Taylor always loves to talk about complimentary football. And I don't think there's a better example of that than on Sunday, because you can time when the offense started to fall apart and when the defense started to pick itself back up. It was like a direct inflection point in that second quarter. because you watch the first drive the Seahawks had, and it's all the issues the Bengals have had, right? It's getting blown off the line, it's missing tackles, it's just a mess in space, right? And the Seahawks just commanded themselves down the field, put up 7 points on the board, and you're thinking this is just what the defense is now, and how are they going to change this? Like, they've had a week to prepare for this, and this is just what they get coming out the gates. And what a momentum shift! Like, what a complete change, reverting back to, I think, the characteristics that we've come to identify with this defense, specifically in the beginning of the second half, Anthony, when Burrow threw that interception. Cam Taylor-Britt, who up to this point in the game has had a phenomenal game against DK Metcalf, and we need to go into that further, but he misses a pass breakup, and Metcalf gets like a nice yards after catch reception. Now they're on the other side of the 50. BJ Hill gets called for a face mask, and now they're inside the 30. The Seahawks get inside the 5 after both Dax Hill and DJ Turner missed an open field tackle on some receiver named Bobo. So now the Seahawks are at the 4-yard line. They're only down 4. They have a chance to take this lead. The offense is sputtering on itself. And then a couple plays later, you get a Mike Hill interception. Like, that sequence of events right there completely shifted this game. And it's because we saw the return of the Bengals defense that we've come to know. And it's that when their backs are up against the wall, yeah, they might give up some big plays. Yeah, they might miss some tackles here and there. But they protect that end zone like their life depends on it. And yes, they got help from a Kenneth Walker flag because he blocked too low on the edge, but they stuffed the run. I think the play right before that, and it did seem like, okay, it's now or never at this point, because if we don't get the stop, then now that they're playing in a deficit, you don't know if the offense can pick itself back up. And the defense really just took it upon themselves to carry this game, and it's a lot reminiscent to what we've seen in the past couple of years.
Yeah, 4 sacks. I think, what did I say yesterday? Like 13 quarterback hits, an insane amount of quarterback hits in this game on Geno Smith. So he's a sore guy today for sure. I mean, aside from that, you've got the 2 interceptions. I give the offense a tiny bit of okay. So the offense I think they got 3 points off of the 2 turnovers. That's not good. That's not good enough. But the only pass I give them is that both interceptions were made deep in their own territory, as the Seahawks were set to score twice. So, that's a long field to go. I get it. But that's been a problem for the Bengals in terms of when their defense has stepped up, created turnovers, the offense has just kind of laid an egg. And so that cannot continue going forward either. There's some things that we are pointing out from the offensive side of the ball that just are not sustainable for this team to go on another run. They have to start changing some of these things and be more opportune. But opportune was definitely the operating word for the defense yesterday. I mean, they were, whether it was Trey Hendrickson, BJ Hill got in the mix, Sam Hubbard had 5 quarterback hits by himself yesterday. I mean, he was all over the place. He had a sack. Logan Wilson had an outstanding game as well. Cam Taylor-Britt, of course, had a great game. So fewer missed tackles. They really took it upon themselves to pick this team up when the offense still wasn't doing its job late in the game. And I mean, really, it took that kind of Herculean effort to to get this win, because if they weren't causing the turnovers, getting the sacks, and hitting Geno Smith as much as they were, that this probably would have been a different result for sure.
We've now seen it twice, and I think the past 2 home games, the Bengals have scored fewer than 20 points and have still won, which was a complete rarity for this franchise in general, especially under Zach Taylor. And both times it's been because their pass rush just goes off. Now against the Rams like 4 weeks ago, it was the Trey Hendrickson show. He had just a prime matchup against a backup left tackle for half of that game. He went off with like 10 pressures and a couple sacks. The problem with the Bengals pass rush this year is that it's been spotty because it's mainly just been Hendrickson kind of one-manning it. And this time you had phenomenal performances from basically the entire starting defensive front, including Cam Sample, who I think had maybe his best game of his career with 3 pressures and a sack. But you had BJ Hill, Sam Hubbard, and DJ Reader all recording, I think, at least 6 pressures, which, according to Next Gen Stats, it's like the 4th time in the past 4 years where a single defense had at least 4 players with 6 pressures. That's a lot of numbers, but essentially all 4 starters for the Bengals defense had consistently good pass rushing days. And yes, the Seahawks had a couple of backups in there, but they had a couple starters in there as well. And even when you have backups in there, like, you have to win those matchups. Like, this is a game where Sam Hubbard was going up against the backup right tackle. He said him, like, he talked after the game how he was setting that tackle up for a lot of power moves. And then at the end of the game, he kind of showed power and kind of ripped around the edge there for a little finesse move. So like he had a really good game. BJ Hill had a really good game. Both of them combined for that little twist stunt at the end of the game to basically close it out, force the throwaway from Geno Smith there. DJ Reader, I think, came alive too. Like he still got some pass rushing juice. And of course, Trey Hendrickson is playing at an all pro level. So whenever this it's not, I don't want to say it's not sustainable, but like it's taken two incredible outings from this defensive line. And granted, they're like, it's the most, the highest paid position group on the team. They've obviously invested heavily to get performances like this, but these have been two insane performances that have really sparked what needed to be great defensive performances. And if that's what it's going to take for this defense to kind of come back alive, then it's just what they have to rely on, I guess.
I had a funny moment yesterday, and I think I mentioned it on the post game show, where I'm like, man, Trey Hendrickson was just an animal yesterday, and he's looking, he's up there with the best of them in terms of sacks and stats and everything. And you go, you think again, they just extended him this summer, and okay, well that's working out well. And then there's a report, I think, from Diana Rossini of The Athletic earlier in the day where of course, this was before the Jets beat the Eagles, but the Jets may be open to moving some players, and one of which is Carl Lawson. And it's just like, man, it's weird how that whole situation. And I like Carl Lawson, and I'm glad he got what he made. But I think everybody was up in arms. I remember that. A lot of fans were up in arms about losing Carl Lawson and bringing in Trey Hendrickson, and just what Trey Hendrickson has done since he has become a Cincinnati Bengal. It's a marvel to witness. I want to bring this up here, John, because this is definitely directed to you, talking to Smart Guy. This is from Mr. Whisper, who is always so generous to us with the YouTube super chat. What did you see with DJ Turner's Juan Drago? DJ Turner snaps. Feels like I've seen Cam Taylor-Britt targeted more than the rookie, which is surprising. I think Cam Taylor-Britt is taking, at times, some of the guys that are higher up on the receiver depth chart than DJ Turner, but DJ Turner has played outstanding. And I think based on what we have seen from CTB and DJ Turner, I think, you may have another great Bengals cornerback tandem in the works here down the road, whether that's, you want to go Leon Hall, Jonathan Joseph, or Torrey James, Delth O'Neal, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think they're setting themselves up for a bright future in the secondary for the Bengals.
Yeah, because the questions about DJ Turner, we'll talk about him first. Like, I think he still is a extremely plus athlete in coverage, and that's why, he's played like 200 some snaps, most of them being in coverage. And he's only been targeted 15 times. He's been out there arguably just as much, if not more, than should have been Awuzie, and he's just not getting a lot of looks because he's not allowing a lot of separation. There was a couple of rough moments in run defense, I want to say, but that's going to happen from time to time. He's a little bit light in terms of his frame, but he ended up going to be against DK Metcalf a couple times, and they targeted him twice, and he allowed 0 receptions. But the star of this game, I think, was clearly Cam Taylor-Britt, arguably his best game of his career on his birthday, nonetheless, his 24th birthday. Like, rarely do you get, I think, for a Bengals team, like, hey, there's the X receiver, and he's 6'4", 240 pounds, all muscle. Go follow him and pester him all game. And he accomplished that very much. Now, obviously, DK Metcalf is going to get his, like we talked about, like he had that big, run after catch play on a little out route, and he had a couple of other catches as well. But just, I think 3 great plays on the ball that he made against him, at least 2, including that first pass breakup, which I think was a tone setter, I think, for the defense too, considering that was the start of the second drive the Seahawks had after they had that touchdown, and Metcalf had a little bit of a step on Cam Taylor-Britt. He made an incredible play on the ball to break it up. It's hard to break up the ball when it's at the catch point for DK Metcalf, but that's exactly what he did, and he just stayed with him and just stayed in his hip pocket and just used his strength, which is physicality and straightforward explosion, against another athlete whose main thing is just straightforward explosion and physicality. So it was a great matchup to watch, and he handled it amazingly. And when he went up against Tyler Lockett, he adjusted, like he played off him a little bit, and he made another great play on the ball in the end zone. So a phenomenal game. Obviously, the interception was a great highlight, but that was just kind of a miscommunication, I think, between Metcalf and Geno Smith. But just a tremendous game from Cam Taylor-Britt, and just one of the main reasons why they won this game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You love to see that. And you can see why the Bengals now, they didn't at the time, they didn't have, for a portion of the time, they didn't have DJ Turner in their back pocket, but you can see why they were comfortable, even with Awuzie coming back from the knee injury, why they were comfortable moving on from Eli Apple, who had given them a good couple of seasons with that team, coming in and kind of playing a small form of hero ball based on the whole Trey Waynes thing and everything. So you could see why they're like, hey, we're comfortable moving on here, because we've seen and we believe in the development of Cam Taylor-Britt, and then you bring in DJ Turner, and he is showing a lot right now. He's showing a lot, and I think that like I said, I think that they are setting themselves up for another great cornerback tandem, hopefully down the road with these two, because it's looking pretty good. But thank you again, Mr. Whisper, for that question. And I think you can also, as weird as this may sound, you can talk about how high quality of a performance that CTB had because of the level of frustration you saw with DK Metcalf. That's he's jamming him at the line, he's getting physical, he's not letting him make the plays, and DK's a freak. And so when you see him get frustrated and obviously the penalty and all that kind of stuff, that's telling you that he's in his head a little bit there, and having his way with him.
Yeah, I think part of the frustration was he found himself open on a play and he wasn't given the ball. And I think he was like talking with like Pete Carroll on the sidelines from that. But yeah, I do think that, like cornerbacks are the douchebags on the football field, right? They're just their whole job is to get in your head and just make you feel shitty about yourself. It's what Jalen Ramsey did to AJ Green 6 years ago. Like the best cornerbacks are kind of built like this, and I think Taylor-Britt has that kind of jerk in him in his play style, but he's certainly got the physicality to match up with receivers like this, and he's got the speed to go with it as well. It's the type of athlete that the Bengals have smartly been identifying in recent years, and it's coming to pay off. But just real quick, going back to DJ Turner, because in this past draft season, when it became apparent that the Bengals were targeting a cornerback early, there was a pushback against that. I feel like in some parts of the fan base, like, how is the cornerback going to get on the field, early in the season? How is he going to play significant snaps when he's maybe number 4 on the depth chart? And of course, the idea of Awuzie not returning 100% in time was definitely apparent at that time. Like, it wasn't a sure thing at all. And even if he was, eventually healthy and able to play in week 1, there was still a risk of, hey, maybe he's not fully back, and maybe there's going to be some type of thing that's going to linger. And now, out of 33 rookie cornerbacks this year, DJ Turner's 7th in snaps and 2nd in the lowest passer rating allowed. So, a cornerback was going to contribute early in this defense, and it just so happens that he's a pretty good one too.
Yeah, I think this is our buddy Will saying Rod Jones and Kawan Ratliff. I think Ratliff was with like maybe Artrell Hawkins, right? Maybe that was that era. I don't remember. But he also, not to go, we're kind of moving on from the defense a little bit, but to go back to the offense here, one of the scapegoats, or one of the people that unfortunately a lot of people are pointing out for performances was Cordell Volson. But as I read and saw some things today, his pass protection was actually a lot more capable from a PFF score perspective than I think a lot of people thought at first blush. What did you see? I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of rewatch it or watch some more of him in this game. What did you kind of see there?
Yeah, he got beat pretty cleanly from a bull rush, and that was one play, and I think he was charged with that sack. But I think for the majority of the game, he was fine. Like, again, like those are warts that you kind of accept with a guy like Wilson. He's going to get beat from time to time, but yeah, PFF grades on an individual game basis sometimes don't always match what your eyes see. There's a lot of things that kind of go into it. Grades, I think, are best viewed over extended periods of time. So, like, if you want to look at grades throughout the first 6 weeks, I think that's smart. But yeah, like, if you see Volson get beat cleanly on a sack and he ends up 75.3 in pass blocking, you're thinking, how the hell does that work out? Well, there's more that goes into it. But I think for the most part, like, the entire offensive line, I think, played pretty well. There were a couple sacks during the second half, but I don't think the Bengals offense was being limited necessarily by the collective group up front. Maybe they were calling plays to kind of help out Cody Ford to make sure that he wasn't on an island protecting for 3 seconds. But other than that, like I thought they played okay.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna talk about what's ahead here because a bye week is on the horizon for the Cincinnati Bengals, and they are 3-3. Before we do, just want to remind folks that if you like what we're doing on this show, and or if you like every show that we do on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel, you can get the audio side of things through your favorite audio streamer: iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. All of the major ones, our shows are there. So whether it's this one, whether it's Talking Football with Bengal Jim and Friends, whether it is Coach Speak and Chalk Talk with the coach, Matt Minnick, 3 and Out with Jason and Kevin, all of those are available through your favorite audio streamer. And then, of course, you can get our stuff on our respective YouTube channel underneath John there by the Cincy Jungle icon. You can click the show icon that's there, our Orange and Black Insider Show icon. Click that to subscribe. Click the bell to be notified when new content is available and when we go live. And then if you could, give us a thumbs up on a video if you like that. And, of course, leave us a review through your favorite audio streamer. Hopefully a 5-star one helps us out and, help spread the word a little bit about what we're doing, what we're about. But appreciate all the support that you have shown us for a long time on this show and through cincyjungle.com. Well, John, as I kind of said here, and we can pull up some of the upcoming schedule stuff, but the Bengals now have a bye. They have an opportunity to get T. Higgins and Joe Burrow fully healthy, which is huge, or as close to full health as possible, which is huge. They may or may not make some maneuvers on their roster. We don't know, but they have a daunting stretch ahead of them out of this bye. So I think this bye actually comes at a pretty good time for a variety of reasons, getting guys healthy. Even a guy like Awuzie, who had the knee and then the back, the back's bugging him a little bit. So, I mean, even guys like that, just rest for a little bit. That's a big key. And then, of course, regroup, adjust, and do what's needed. As you come out of the gates, you are in San Francisco for a 49ers, a tough 49ers team, obviously, despite what happened yesterday. Then you've got the Bills. Then you've got, we could talk about others. Here's the thing, though, John. At 3-3, we're kind of like, about the Bengals, right? We're like, they have moments of looking pretty good. And this is the kind of time of year where I don't know who's who and what's what, right? The Bengals are 3-3. We think we kind of know based on their past record what they can do, what they will do potentially. The Chiefs haven't been scoring a ton of points in some of their games, so they've been kind of a little inconsistent, even though they have one of the best records in the NFL. You saw the Eagles lose to the Jets with Zach Wilson at the helm yesterday. And then, of course, you had the Niners lose in sloppy weather at Cleveland for their first loss. So you got a lot of weird stuff happening right around now. A lot of teams have better records than the Bengals, but there's stuff where you go, tough matchup, but there's vulnerabilities potentially there.
Yeah, I think the commonality, though, between like the 49ers and the Eagles loss, other than that they were like two of the best teams in the NFC, they went up against really good defenses. Like that Browns defense is no joke at this point. It just cannot be looked at as anything but the best defense in the NFL. Look no further than Myles Garrett just having his way with Trent Williams like 4 consecutive times on the last drive there. That was something I was going to watch, though. Like Brock Purdy, yes, he looks great in structure. Yes, like his mechanics are good and everything. But what happens when they run into a defense that just doesn't allow the 49ers to do whatever they want? And that's more or less what happened in Cleveland. Of course, the Eagles, I mean, that Jets defense is championship caliber, and they've been kind of going through some struggles of their own on offense. They have a new offense coordinator and everything. So, yeah, that wasn't as expected, maybe, but like the Jets defense is legit. And if the Bengals defense is approaching, or at least getting somewhat closer to that realm, they'll never be. They won't be the Browns or the Jets this year in that regard. They're just not as talented or athletic enough. But if they can generate pass rushes on a consistent basis, regardless of the quality of the offensive line, it definitely gives them a chance. But you're right, man. Like this stretch up ahead, I think it's why this bye week was earlier than they've had in recent years. I think it's always been like week 9 or 10 for them, which is like right smack dab in the middle. Now it's a little bit earlier, but it definitely comes at a good time because you have, I think, a quick rundown of this. Orlando Brown dealing with a groin injury, Jermaine Pratt dealing with a shoulder injury, Chidobe Awuzie dealing with a back injury that clearly limited him against the Seahawks. T. Higgins obviously with that rib fracture, more rest for Joe Burrow's calf, and just everyone else who's dealing with some minor ailments. I think you're at a point now where all of those guys I just listed should be practicing next week unless some type of a setback occurs. But yeah, if they play the 49ers this week, especially after the 49ers just lost by game losing field goal with these injuries, yeah, I wouldn't like the Bengals chances very much.
Yeah, so here is the Bengals schedule coming up here. You see here, you've got the 49ers, the Bills after that. Is that what a Sunday night? That's a Sunday night, right?
Yep.
The Bills game. Yeah. And then you've got the Texans who, oh, by the way, they're 3-3. That was supposed to be a big, yeah, that was supposed to be a big rebuild, 3-3. So that's looking a little tougher than expected. Then I believe this is the Thursday night game, correct? Against the Ravens in Baltimore. So that's a tough one. Steelers have proven they're 3-2, I think right now, 3-3, something like that.
They're never going to go away.
Yeah, they won't go away. The Jags are so. I mean, you've got, and then the Colts, I think, are 3-3-ish right now, or 3-2, something to that effect. The Vikings, they're struggling a little bit, but I think they got the win yesterday against the Bears, if I'm not mistaken. Then you got the Steelers again, and then the Chiefs and the Browns. So this is a gauntlet here coming up, and they need to rest up. They need to regroup, and they need to figure things out on offense. Otherwise, this may not be a similar story to the last couple of years.
Yeah, you're 3-3, and your best win is barely getting out alive at home against the Seahawks. Seahawks are a really good team. Seahawks are really good on both offense and defense. They're just one of the more well-rounded teams in the league, but winning with 17 points and 3 in the second half. It's not going to get it done when the Bills or the 49ers or even the Ravens or especially the Chiefs, when they're playing at their usual level, it's not sustainable. And this is why I think the urgency in the words of both Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan is important right now. And just taking this week to evaluate what is working and what isn't working. I really liked what Zach Taylor said about making changes. I want to read a quote from him. Assess what we're doing well, assess what we thought we should have been doing well that maybe we're not, and do we need to make tweaks? Do we need to call more of this or that? And so I think this bye week comes at a good time for us. 6 weeks in, that's a pretty good sample size to see kind of where we're at, maybe what other teams are seeing, and take a step back and make sure that we're continuing to progress in the right spot going forward. I certainly don't think that they expected to be this low in terms of efficiency after 6 weeks. I think they obviously expected Burrow to not be as limited as he was, but this is the only time to really take this kind of a reset, because if not, it's just going to be trial by fire against some of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah, good point here. I think it's Torrey Cohen. It looks like 7 of the 12 games remaining are at home. So, that's always good where you're not traveling to, a bunch towards the end there. So, but some big ones at home, obviously, as we pointed out, some big ones at home there, and a lot of tough quarterbacks that this team will be facing. So they've got a lot of work to do ahead for sure. And, again, what were they at last year around this time? Were they 3-4?
They were 3-3.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if you want to use last year as the barometer or whatever, it's a different team. It's a lot of the same characters. It is a different team. There are a lot of new people out there, playing in the secondary and all that kind of stuff. But, this team has that in their DNA where, they don't get phased too often, and they seem to channel frustration or adversity. They seem to channel it in a positive way towards focus. And so I think that's a credit to the coaches. That's a credit to their quarterback and the other leaders in that locker room. So I trend towards believing in them and this thing looking kind of like peak Bengals that we have seen over the past couple of years. But things need to get some things need to be tweaked. That is for sure.
Yeah, I think I don't think you're going to see the defense be. I mean, at this point, like they can have good weeks like this, but I think by season's end, they're not going to be like a top 10 unit by any means. I think there's just too much shakiness. I think in the secondary, and there might just be some weeks where that pass rush isn't as dominant. So a lot of the onus is going to be on the offense. And I think the difference between this year and last year is that you had a promising win over the Saints, which is kind of what they referred to as last week's win against the Cardinals, and at least that's what it kind of felt like to some players.
Yeah.
And then you had a dominant showing against a terrible Falcons team, which got them, I think, to 4-3. And then Jamar Chase injures his hip or is officially out with a hip injury. They don't know what to do against the Browns. They get embarrassed there. So that put him at like 4-4. But at least you saw, like when they had everyone healthy, you saw things clicking in ways that it should, and you had a defense that was playing particularly well. There's just not as much confidence right now in the offense kind of finding stable footing. They might have good weeks against really bad teams, but there's not really a really bad team left on the schedule. So it's just gonna they're just gonna have to step up against teams that are more capable of taking away what they want to do, which is going to require it's going to require the best forms of adjustments, and adjustments that, again, the Bengals have made in the past. They've made some midseason tweaks before, but this is going to have to be these are going to be really noticeable tweaks, and it's going to have to feature guys playing better than what they're playing right now.
The worry that I have, at least long term, is, and I've probably mentioned this a couple of times on past episodes, but the worry I have just with some of the stuff we've seen from the offenses is that this is these long dry spells and the settling for field goals instead of touchdowns, all of that is very reminiscent of their last two playoff runs where they're not scoring a ton of points. They're not scoring a lot of points. They're relying on defensive touchdowns and turnovers, and that's fine. It's got them far, but it hasn't gotten them all the way over the hump. So that's what worries me, because when it comes time in January, you're going to need to make that one extra play on offense. You're going to need that one field goal to be a touchdown if you're going to, be a Super Bowl champion. That's just kind of how it goes. So that's what worries me a little bit. While I recognize the fortitude and the ability for them to adjust and do different things and rebound well, all of that, there is a semblance of a broken record from what I have seen offensively the past two postseason runs.
That's a really good parallel, because the difference being to me is that they were limited offensively in the postseason because of how bad their offensive line was, whether it's just from talent level or attrition and injuries. Now it's like the offensive line, like it's not great, but it's not, I don't think it's holding back the offense from what they want to do. Like that was supposed to be the biggest step forward. Like you have the same caliber of talent on offense with a better offensive line, a more stable offensive line. The offensive line, I think, is more stable. Yes, of course, like guys are going to lose here and there, and it's going to be embarrassing from time to time, but it's not just completely destroying games and just putting yourself in a sandbox like it was for a couple of those playoff games. So now it's just a lot of issues that honestly just shouldn't really be issues at this point, whether it be play calling or execution. So that to me is adding a level, I think, of worry, because they're not quite there. But again, like they have time now, and they have a chance to kind of regroup and reset, and we'll see how they respond.
Dalton Stone here says, did you see Boyd tell it looked like he was doing a tell that Yoshi was going to get the ball for his touchdown, or was it just me? I'll have to go back and look. Did you happen to notice that? I'll have to go back and look.
I did not notice that.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either. I'll have to go back and check that out. But hey, Bengals are 3-3. Not exactly where everybody wanted them to be at this point, but given some of the struggles they've had, the injuries they've had to overcome, and getting into the bye week and hopefully getting healthy, this is, still up there for, with the cards you have been dealt. This is one of the better situations and better standings that you could have hoped for here. And again, I keep reiterating it. 3-3 is just worlds different to me than 2-4. It seems much, much different. There's a different respect level at that winning percentage as opposed to 2-4. So you got to take that as they come, and hopefully adjustments will be made going forward. We're I think going to get on out of here. We try and keep these. Sometimes they go a little longer, but we're trying to keep them about 45 minutes or so, since we've split up the episodes on 2 different evenings. We'll be back with you on Thursday, again, there will be a 3 and Out episode. Bengal Jim's going to be doing a show tomorrow night, Tuesday night. So check out all of those. In the meantime, I'm trying to give you stuff almost every single day of the week on either on our YouTube channel or throughout the audio channels there. So go check it out. But we'll be back on Thursday. What do you got for us as we head on out of here, John?
Oh man, I think I've relayed a lot of really cool stats in recent weeks or in recent episodes. The stat that Ben Baby provided via ESPN Stats and Info yesterday is amazing to me. When Andre Yosevas scored a touchdown on his birthday, which, by the way, him scoring a touchdown on his birthday and Cam Taylor-Britt intercepting a pass on his birthday, they were born on the same exact day because they're both 24 years old, is bonkers to me. It's crazy. But Andre Yosevas is the first Bengals player with a receiving touchdown on their birthday since Andrew Whitworth in 2010 when he as an eligible receiver. That's awesome. I have no words other than that.
The debacle that was the 2010 season. Wow. That's good stuff. That is good stuff. I just want to reiterate on that note a little bit. I just want to always reiterate that, and I don't want to speak for you, John, but I'm assuming you are going to agree with this sentiment that we highly respect and we really enjoy the work and the content put out by all of the people who cover the Bengals from a media perspective, whether that's, online or print media and everything. They do a great job covering this team. They do a lot of hard work. We recognize that. We try and give kudos and shout outs and citations and everything to everybody that we can, whether it's on our social media channels, whether it's on our our episodes, like our news episodes and stuff. We try and share and link everything and all of that. So we try our best to do all of that. Hopefully you all feel that we do a good job of that, but just want to reiterate. And many of those people have been kind enough to come on this show, Ben being one. We've had a number of great beat writers and Mike Petralia and James Rapine and many, many others who have come on this show and treated us very, very well. And we appreciate that too. But just want to give, as always, even though it kind of goes without saying, that we give a tip of the cap to beat writers and those who cover the team from a number of different perspectives. They do a great job. We try and credit everybody that we can, and we try to do so in a fair way. And hopefully we do a decent job of that, and we'll continue to try hard to do that. But a shout out to all of those who cover the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, nothing to add to that.
Well, I guess there's this. You all are great at giving flowers. I don't know if I was giving flowers. I was giving kudos there. But at any rate, that being said, appreciate all of you as well tuning in to this show and the others on the Cincy Jungle podcast network. Go check out all of the other shows that we've got coming up there. Go to cincyjungle.com for your news, opinions, analysis, and podcasts. And of course, go check out John at A to Z Sports and the great work he is doing there, covering not only the Cincinnati Bengals, but spearheading AFC North coverage. So go check that out. We appreciate all of you. Take care. We'll be back a little later this week and hopefully with some special guests for you. We'll see. Take care.